Good afternoon, everyone. We hope you have enjoyed the opening address by Minister of State Ms. Low Yen Ling and the keynote sharing by Group CEO Mandai Wildlife Group, Mr. Mike Barclay. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Let us give other participants a little more time to join us from the main plenary. Stay tuned. Good afternoon. I see we have colleagues, we have people from other polytechnics. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, students. Good afternoon and welcome to our breakout session 2. My name is Wayne. I'm the lecturer at the Diploma in Hotel and Hospitality Management over at the School of Hospitality at RP. I will be your moderator for this breakout session. We'll be covering the topic of service touchpoints, digital and human experiences. I think we all know the pandemic has really caused a real wrench in the industry currently. So we want to investigate how is the human touch actually valued now? That is the key question here. Human touch, right? Is arguably, right, the most critical factor when it comes to hospitality. Before we start, I'd like to introduce our distinguished speakers. Okay, we have Mr. Eddie Dutta, Director of Engineering at Intercontinental Singapore under International Hotel Group under IHG. Welcome. We have Mr. Edward Wright, Regional Vice President, Asia Amadeus Hospitality. Welcome, Edward. And we have Mr. Joseph Ling, Founder and CEO Vouch. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we strongly encourage participation by way of questions, which you can post in the Zoom chat. Do indicate who you'd like the question to be posed to. So you've already been introduced to our speakers. And just a short hygiene announcement regarding any network errors, or if you experience any network problems, please re-click on the link that you have gotten from the main session. Okay, with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Eddie Dutta. As a member in the Hotel Executive Committee, Eddie leads the Departments of Engineering and Security at Intercontinental Singapore. Currently heading the overall technological aspect of introducing productive initiatives in the hotel. Mr. Eddie, I hand the time over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me clearly. Before I go into the topic of the question, I just want to let you know about the hotel that I work in, which is Intercontinental Singapore. The construction was basically carried out in 1995. It is a beautiful, gorgeous hotel. The architecture is what drove me towards this, and I think that's why today I agreed to communicate over here, is to give a broad perspective of what hotel industry is and how the question that is being posed over here can be answered. So the question that's posed to me is, how do we provide seamless service to digitally savvy customers demanding the value of human touch? This is a very good question, and please allow me to explain to you in two bits. The first bit is to explain to you how hotels basically work, and we intend to do that using Porter's value chain theory. Next points, please. Thank you. So the operating parameters of service industry, as I said before, drastically changed and evolved in the past 2 years. The use of technology is basically to minimize the manpower, is suddenly of the biggest priority within the industry. And how do we find the balance? That's the key question. So what I'm going to explain to you right now is how does the hotel industry, or how does the hotel work? Next one, please, ma'am. Next one, thank you. So the first part of a hotel, or any firm actually, is the firm infrastructure. What does we mean with that? Firm infrastructure is nothing but financing, planning, investor relationships, and so on and so forth. The next element is human resource management, which is basically the recruitment, training, compensation systems, all of that. The post after that is the technology development, which is basically the product design, process design, market research. That's the next one, ma'am. Now, as you can see, technology development before the COVID-19 hit, which is 2019, was not a very big impact, was not a very big aspect of hotel operations. It was more of like a support activities, which is what the Porter's theory basically suggests. So technology development was the product design, the product package, market research, to let us know how can we operate. So that was the impact of technology in the hotels. The next one, please, ma'am. Followed by procurement. So all of these four elements together make the support activities. The next one, please, ma'am. As I said, is the support activities. The next one, please, which is the inbound logistics, followed by operations, followed by outbound logistics, followed by marketing and sales, followed by service. Now, allow me to explain a bit more on these 5 items. Now, these 5 items are the crucial bit, which is the primary activities of hotel industry. Inbound logistics basically talks about all the raw materials we need to operate as hotels. For example, room amenities, F&B food products, for kitchen to basically cook the items. All of these are classified as inbound logistics. Operations, so these logistics are then taken by the operations to create the outbound, or what we call the eventual service. Now, this is what the marketing and sales department of the hotel basically goes out in the market to kind of teach everyone and let everyone know what this hotel is all about and what are we trying to sell. That is basically, in a nutshell, the service that we sell. Hotel industry is nothing but service. So next one, please, ma'am. So all of these basically comprises and are classified as the primary activities. Next one, please, ma'am. So as you can see, all of these basically leads to the margin or the gross operating profit for any of the business, especially for hospitality, to carry out the respective operations. Next one, please, ma'am. Next one. So this is what I meant. It was a Porter's value chain analysis model. I hope that you understood what the hospitality industry is all about. Now, in 2020 onwards, this has changed completely and has incorporated the analysis of PESTEL, which I hope that everyone over here knows, which is to consider the overall geography and the political, economic, sociological, all of the elements together. If we, at this moment, we have to observe hospitality from a holistic angle. Next slide, please, ma'am. Thank you. If you go on the next one, please. So a potential approach, what we are recommending right now to answer the question of how do we provide the seamless service. There is no one way about it. There is no one answer to it, but there are approaches. So there is no magic 8-ball. There is a measured approach based on the brand promise and the brand vision. I'll give you an example of that. The brand promise for InterContinental Singapore is actually a luxury service. How do we define luxury? How do we define service? And what is the brand vision? Based on that, there has to be a balance between technology and human interaction. To the same aspect, our sister hotels, for example, Holiday Inn, the brands that we talk about for ISG, they might feel a different way of approaching them because of the nature of brand they have, of the nature of brand promise they have, and the vision they have. So that is what we are trying to explain in this next slide. Next one, please, ma'am. Please keep on going on till you reach the pyramid. There you go. Thank you. Keep going, man. Keep going. It's all right. Thank you. So as you can see, the base of the pyramid has now become technology and infrastructure. So our definition of hospitality right now at this moment is to understand the technology and infrastructure, not just of the hotel, not just of the needs of the guests, but actually what the country that we reside in has to offer. Because of the COVID-19, we need to see a business from the government regulations perspective, because that's what defines your operating parameters. That's what defines the ultimate service, as you can see from the top. Now, if you see this pyramid, on the left side of the pyramid is what are the forces for us, for the hotel industry. And on the right side are what are the governing items from the country that drives and modulates our service. It has to be considered to give the overall service in the end. So technology and infrastructure talks about the real-time nowness, the personalized, individualized experience that we give to the guest. How can we deliver this? Does the country has the capability of 5G or 6G? Does the country has a satellite blockchains? Does the country have robots, technology incorporated into the country so that we can utilize that? Based on which there are exogenous variables, which is basically talks about what are the ethical morality from hospitality perspective and how can we carry out our operation exactly to the point of carbon reduction. How do we operate ourselves to make sure that the customer, that is our guest, sees us as a viable option to spend their weekend or to spend a week or to work from our hotel? And these are the exogenous variables that plays a very important part in what we do and in what the brand represents. An InterContinental brand represents and values ethics to the topmost of the priorities. Again, the same variables apply from the governments, from the place or the geography that you reside in, which is the consumer trends, the demographics. Are the consumers really looking for sustainability, or they do not care about that? For example, Singapore cares about sustainability. So they would look out for hotels, especially in the luxurious brands, to see which hotels are sustainable and then whether they can go into and basically spend the weekend. So based on which we basically derive our market forces. Again, from the left side, if you see the green boxes, which is the value co-creation, human resource, talent management, key at this junction. Technology is not to replace human beings. Technology is not to replace human beings in the service sector, because it's all about human experiences and touches. However, technology is to reduce the amount of paperwork, the redundant work that the human manpower does. Instead, free that manpower up to basically serve our guests, because that's where we get our survival from. It's the guests, no one else. Based on these market forces, then that's where the marketing, the branding, the communication to general mass goes out, based on which we operate, based on which we try our best every day to give the service that we promise. So in terms of a nutshell, the next points, please, ma'am. Thank you. These are the planning and management strategies, and basically this is the tourism pyramid for the potential future, I think, in the next coming years. So the key and technology and infrastructure market investment approach in hotel industry is basically at this current junction is 4 items that we're looking for within ISG, which is approaching contactless check-in, robot cleaning, overall guest management system, and back of the house system management. So I think our esteemed partners over here, panelists, will shed more light on that. If you have any questions, please put forward to Wayne, and I think he will ask me later on. Thank you. Over to you, Wayne.
Thank you, Eddie. It was a wonderful sharing. I think give a very good broad overview of the hospitality industry in Singapore as a whole, and how operations can really carry on in these times, right? With technology being thrust to the forefront, and the fact that the human experience in terms of technology, there's so much things that can be done by technology, by robots, and it's really quite amazing to see what we're going to be expecting in the near future. Okay, thank you so much, Eddie. We move on to our next speaker, Mr. Edward Wright. So as mentioned, he's the Regional Vice President, Asia Amadeus Hospitality. He has been leading the Asia sales team that includes the combined business units of Amadeus Hospitality and the TravelClick portfolio. Amadeus Hospitality is now building a complete hotel offering to enrich every step of the guest journey and shape the future of travel. Let's hear what Edward has to say. Over to you, Edward.
Wayne, thank you so much. And everybody on this call, thank you so much for joining this virtual conference today. As a hospitality graduate myself, it's so good to be here. It's so good to see so many people participating today. Next slide, please. So nearly 2 years after the pandemic was first detected, hotel occupancies have not returned to their full capacity. This is often due to, country regulations, seasonal variations, vaccine restrictions, and consumer confidence. And this has really resulted in a couple of things. First thing is reservation lead times have dropped to 0 to 7 days before the trip is booked. Booking flexibility has gone from a perk to an expectation. Hotels have had to introduce COVID restrictions. They've had to get very creative on how they manage their public space. And arriving guests now have high expectations for cleanliness, as well as elevated levels of customer service. So as demand starts to return, the big question is how can we effectively use technology to really digitalize the industry to meet these current demands? Next slide, please. So effectively, COVID has acted as a catalyst to really transform the hospitality industry. Technology is now a critical component in the new technology and hospitality landfill. Hoteliers are increasingly looking at moving from on-premise solutions to cloud solutions where they're able to aggregate data from customers from various different touch points. They're also trying to optimize and really drive efficiencies across their interdepartments. So when used correctly, technology can really support a couple of key areas. And Adi kind of touched on some of these in his previous presentation. The first is with this data and with these efficiencies, it gives hoteliers more opportunity to offer personalized service. It also helps to reduce operational costs. And ultimately, the whole goal of all of the things that we do and strive for is to drive a better customer experience throughout the industry. But one does have to question, is too much digitalization taking away from the core essence of what hospitality was founded on? Next slide, please. But ultimately, as we all know, hospitality at its core is always about its people. It has been, it will be, and it will continue to be way into the future. So the balance is finding the right solution between high tech that allows for high touch to give that enhanced customer experience. And ultimately, brands must really look at themselves to understand that, is their technology really aligning with the brand promise? Is the technology and digitalization supporting the hotel experience in which they're standing on and which they're selling? Next slide, please. So when considering new technology, hoteliers should ask some fundamental questions. These are simple things. So does it solve a common pain point? Or will it enhance the current guest experience? Will it truly empower staff to offer a more personalized experience? And does the technology actually streamline operations, or is it just a cool gimmick to have? And I suppose the last one, which is particularly close to my heart, is will it really integrate to all of the various different systems that operate in a hotel today? Next slide, please. So fundamentally, technology should be there to empower staff to better service the guests rather than being a futuristic replacement. I think a great example, and one that kind of divides a lot of opinion, is the check-in. So we know at the core, it's all about choice, being able to provide individuals a choice of check-in, check-out. And I think a great solution is the tablet-based check-in. This is a great example where technology can really empower staff to deliver a better service by allowing front desk agents to escape the front desk and really be able to kind of deliver a very unique personalized service wherever they are in the hotel. So this really is a good example of turning a traditional admin pain point into elevating that customer service. And it's also a really good time for hoteliers to upsell their services, upsell their amenities, and provide just additional information about the resources around them. Next slide, please. Communication. I think Joseph's going to touch on this afterwards, but communication is so important. And today we know that there are many different forms of communication. We also know that 2/3 of all people would prefer to have communication either by a text message, instant message, than being actually phoned. And of those individuals, they would much prefer to have a direct contact with somebody at the hotel itself who can deliver really personal, true insights into the experience that they're about to have. So ultimately, there is no single means of communication. You know, if I'm traveling for business, I may prefer to communicate in one way, but if I'm traveling for leisure, I'll have a totally different persona in how I want to be communicated to. So ultimately, finding the right communication channel for that guest really relies on understanding who your guests are, being relevant to the local regions, and working with partners that can support multiple different channels, providing multiple different languages across multiple different platforms. Next slide, please. Generation Clean. There's a lot of buzzwords that are coming up and have been coming up over the last 2 years, but Generation Clean really prioritizes cleanliness over everything, and they are a growing segment. Today, as Adi also touched on, you know, hoteliers are really kind of challenged to provide additional levels of cleanliness. A lot of that is, you know, dictated by government regulations, and they're also challenged to maintain the level of service. So you have higher cleaning standards, higher expectations, and it is a challenge. So some hotels have opted to have an opt-in housekeeping versus an opt-out housekeeping. Some 5 stars are also providing safety consultations prior to arrival, which really does deliver, you know, better customer service, heightened degree of comfort for those individual guests. But on the flip side, it really does put an extra strain on the operations team. And as we've seen across the different regions, particularly in NORAM and in Europe, there has been a real strong labor shortage. It's been a challenge to get people back into the industry, to service the industry. So no matter how big or small you are, more and more management companies and individual hotels are looking at technology to automate work orders, to improve communications, and to really, you know, allow you to have an interactive hotel across multiple different platforms to deliver that service level. You know, you're effectively being asked to deliver a higher service with a lower resource. So service optimization technology has really kind of come to the forefront. Next slide, please. And this is one of my favorite ones. When I was doing a little bit of research, and this is another buzzword that is growing, the combination between leisure and business travel, bleisure. So historically, you know, we've always kind of seen business travel where people would typically extend either a couple of days for or a couple of days after their business trip. But what we've found in the recent year is that more and more companies are actually having a lot more open mind to the way that they are actually getting people back into the offices. More and more flexible working conditions, better technology, the rise of digitalization, and I suppose the overall way that we communicate through Zoom, through Teams, is really changing the diagram in which we all kind of have to work in the framework. So I think there's a lot of benefits. You know, if you can include and incorporate some business and leisure, it really goes to kind of, you know, blurring the lines between work and play and allowing people to really kind of make the most of the time that they have. Next slide, please. So I suppose my kind of takeaway is that digitalization is here. It will continue. It will touch us throughout all of the industry, whether it is the airlines, airports, hotels. It's here to stay. And I think there is tension between high touch and high tech, but ultimately, if we kind of strip it all away, as long as we have the core value proposition, which is how will it enhance the guest experience, it really will support us going into the future. And again, if it's done correctly, it will provide opportunities for enhanced personalization, reduce operational costs, and ensure guest satisfaction, which is everything we're striving for. So thank you very much. My quick thoughts and intake on technology over the last couple of years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert. I think that was really succinct and building on from what Eddie actually shared about the brand promise. So you can see, especially what you mentioned about perks to expectations. The fact that operational costs are increasing, right? The brand promise still must remain firm. Understanding who your guests are is very important. That leisure guests are here to stay as well. And the point you made about communications, I think, brings very nicely to our next speaker and our final speaker, Mr. Joseph Ling. Joseph, as you know, is the co-founder and CEO of Vouch. Vouch is an award-winning technology startup that helps businesses in the travel industry craft engaging digital concierge powered by AI. Vouch is a travel tech company that provides innovative technology to the hospitality segment to enhance productivity, boost revenue, and elevate the overall guest experience. Joseph, I hand over the floor to you.
Thanks, Wayne. Good afternoon, folks. Just want to give a quick shout out to RP. Thank you for organizing this and to say that I'm really excited to be here speaking with you. It's tough to be the last to speak because it's really difficult to sound clever after all the smart things that Eddie and Edward have said. I mean, how do you compete with Porter's value chain and buzzwords like leisure, right? Well, I'll try. Jokes aside, Vouch is a startup in the travel and hospitality space, and our flagship product is a guest experience platform for hotels. Today, I'd just like to share some of my thoughts on why I think having a digital guest experience is now critical for hotels, how we think about the digital guest experience, and also some ideas on how digitalizing the guest experience can open up new opportunities for companies like us to capture. Next slide, please. Since the beginning of 2020, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you, but all over the world, hotels have had great trouble predicting and managing occupancy. There are really just too many factors to contend with. You have infection rates that keep varying, resulting in frequent changes to regulations. We've experienced that so much in Singapore. All this makes planning manpower resources an exercise in frustration for hotels, actually the whole travel industry. When you couple this with really high turnover in the industry, it really turns into a nightmare. Being a hotelier today is just so tough, right? Do we choose to hire, expecting higher occupancy in the coming months? Or do we try to cope with the manpower that we have right now in case travel shuts down again? Who knows, right? Next slide, please. And what makes it worse is that even if hotels wanted to hire, there is a severe labor crunch in the industry right now. 1 in 6 hospitality jobs lie vacant, and this despite salaries being up more than 30%. Not so good for the hotels, but I suppose it's good for those of you entering the industry now. And I think a lot of this boils down to the strong reliance on foreign workers and COVID travel restrictions forcing many to go back home. So really, hospitality is in between a rock and a hard place right now. And this is why many hotels have been forced to turn towards digital solutions to cope. Next slide, please. So when hotels start to consider digital solutions, I think where many of them struggle is that there is a belief that hospitality is really all about the human touch. And it takes a lot of education and an open mind among the hoteliers to start to recognize that the value of the human touch is really not the same across all aspects of the guest journey. In fact, there are some interactions where guests would rather not have to speak to a human. Next slide, please. So even pre-COVID, some of the surveys that have been conducted show that guests have had a preference to self-service. 73% of them prefer self-service over speaking with a human. Customers also often want information quick and on their own terms, instead of waiting for operators to pick up their calls or concierge to attend to them at a physical counter. So at Vouch, we believe that where the human touch thrives and where it should be applied is any interaction that requires empathy, creativity, or charisma. Empathy, creativity, or charisma. And interactions that don't depend on these things for success can and should be automated. Next slide, please. So I hope what I've shared gives a bit of context into the challenges that hospitality is facing right now and why it's quite difficult for hotels to adapt. So the question is, how can we deliver services and products digitally effectively while increasing guest satisfaction despite the reduction in human interaction? And here's how we at Vouch considered this problem. We first asked ourselves, right, where are the parts of a guest journey that can be replaced with self-service solutions? That is, where are the parts of the guest journey that doesn't always require an abundance of empathy, creativity, or charisma? Next slide, please. And we realized that some of these places include room requests. That means you need more towels, water bottles, you pick up the phone to ask for these things. F&B orders, booking of facilities, and many other interactions. And we realized that a lot of these functions are currently being done over the room phone. So we realized that if a hotel can significantly reduce the number of calls to the front desk or the call center successfully, there's going to be huge productivity gains to be had. And that often doesn't affect the guest experience. Next slide, please. So I'm sure many of you would have experienced a situation where you tried calling the front desk or the call center when you're in your room, but you're not able to get through. Sometimes you might see a nice standee at the side asking you to download the hotel app, but I'm sure that even if you can't get through, you're probably not going to download an app, create an account, link up your stay just to make your request. You're probably just going to call back again later and probably in all likelihood get upset again. So the lesson that we learned here is that it's really important to lower the barrier to entry to technology and make it so easy for guests to use a product, because only if guests have easy access to your products, self-service products, then they will change their behavior from using the room phones, which they're so used to. Otherwise, they're just going to fall back into their old behavior, right? And any investment into tech will become useless. So we carefully considered the interface for our line of hospitality products, really, really carefully. And we realized that we needed to choose the interface very, very carefully. I realize I've used that word many times. More specifically, we made sure that there was no need to download an app. The guests could just scan a QR code, gain access to the products and services the hotel provides. Next slide, please. So what we do at Vouch is we provide an end-to-end guest experience platform that at hotels that cover pre-stay, mobile check-in, on-premise transactions like room requests, in-room dining, and so much more. And it helps hotels to not just digitalize, but improve the guest experience while boosting productivity. Effectively, what we're doing is what Eddie mentioned just now. We are trying to free up hotel staff from mundane processes where the human touch doesn't really make an impact, to allow them to spend more time applying the human touch where it has maximum effect. Next slide. So with our platform, we make it really easy. Guests just scan a QR code and they can then access all the products and services in the hotel. We've seen 70 to 90% of all transactions in a hotel pass through us, 85% of guests scanning through. And all this is because we make it so easy for them to access it, right? And what's really striking is that actually in the surveys that we've conducted, 98% of guests have said the platform has enhanced their experience instead of deteriorated it. And all this means that there's an incredibly high usage of a self-service platform with a captive audience. But what I really wanted to talk about are the interesting opportunities that now open up. Next slide, please. And to understand this opportunity, it's important to understand a little bit about how the recovery is shaping up. We now have a situation where travelers have built up so much savings and they have a desire to spend it. With an uncertain future, they also don't know when travel will shut down again and are much more likely to spend when they do travel. Next slide. So by deploying a guest experience platform with high use rate, hotels now have a whole lot of users that they can upsell to. Next slide. So a few examples. You can, with a digital platform, you have a captive group of audience where you can do things like upsell upgraded rooms at check-in while your guests are using mobile check-in. You can send a friendly message to them at dinner time to encourage them to treat themselves to something special at your restaurant. You could potentially, when it rains, send them a message to say, why not you eat in, we give you a 5 to 10% voucher. You can drive a lot of sales at your restaurant. So many different things you can do when you digitalize the experience that you couldn't have done previously. Because there's no way you're gonna get your staff to call up every single guest one by one to tell them about these things, right? So what Vouch is really interested in is looking to capture more value for the hospitality industry with these changing trends. And digitalizing the guest experience is really critical for us to open up these opportunities. Next slide. So that brings, next slide please. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I hope that was useful to you. I think that hospitality is changing really fast. And the good news is that it's changing for the better and becoming a lot more exciting than ever. The new technologies and opportunities that are coming to bear will make the next 10, 15 years a really interesting time for hospitality. Overall, I hope you're as excited about hospitality's future as I am. Thank you.
Joseph, I think you can add me to that. I'm really excited about what hospitality has to offer. Okay, at this point in time, we come to the most exciting part of the session, which is our panel discussion without speakers, of course. May I please invite the speakers to turn on their mics and video for the duration of the panel discussion. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any questions that you have, any burning questions, please do ask our panel. I will start the ball rolling with one of the questions. I think a lot of people in this call will probably be wondering how hospitality is actually shaping up this year, or how is it going to shape up since COVID has put such a spanner in a lot of businesses. I'm wondering if maybe we can start with Eddie to answer this question.
That's a very good question and a very tough one. Thank you for that, Wayne. I think I can only give an answer to that by personally reflecting what I personally have gone through and my team has gone through. In the past 2 years, I think we had hardly had a peaceful night's sleep, I guess I would say that. We have been going through SHN, trying to survive yet again. We had been going through changes, workload that has come into the perspective of the entire journey to basically stay afloat. I think that's the biggest bit. However, I think there is a different, as Edward said, there's a different charisma in the hotel industry because it's more like a family. It is not, you're not going through this alone. It's the entire, that's why I explained the Porter Chains theory, right? Because it's about the entire team together. It's where everything happens. So what I foresee in 2022, something, it resonates to what our minister said as well in the beginning of the call. I think it's going to get better this year, but I think we need to be smart and nimble in how we react. And technology plays a big part in that. When I say smart and nimble, it's how do you tweak your operations based on another curveball thrown by the world. I think that's the key to move forward. Reduce your operating cost, or base cost, what we say. Keep the jobs for the people, because it's all about service and human response, human touch equivalents to service, and free up their time. I think that's the best approach for hospitality right now, at least in this year.
Thank you, Eddie. Edward? Sure.
Yeah, so Wayne, great question, and I'm glad Eddie went first. So I'm an optimist and always have been, and I think over the last 2 years we've definitely learned a lot about ourselves, a lot about our teams, and a lot about our partners. Amadeus really relies on our partners for us to continue to grow. We've had some challenging conversations to be able to support our partners as best we can, but fundamentally we want to be able to come out stronger. And that really does, from our side, work with different management companies to evaluate their technology stack, see where there is opportunities for digitalization. Eddie, mentioned that we are challenged, and Joseph mentioned as well, there are labor shortages, but there is so much supporting technology now that will help with automation. Joseph's great presentation, he really kind of took us through the customer journey where there is immense opportunity. So I think, here in Asia, it has been more conservative than NORAM and in Europe, but there's so much pent up desire to travel. I cannot wait to travel, whether that's whether that's traveling to see customers or traveling to see my team. I think all of us just can't wait to travel, and I think that creates its opportunities itself. So crystal ball, but yeah, I'm optimistic for at least the second half of this year. So yeah.
Thank you, Albert. And Joseph, would you like to conclude then?
I think I'd like to share two sides of the coin. So on the hotel side, I feel like we're reaching the point where hoteliers are starting to realize that there needs to be a better way to scale their operations up and down more effectively. And many of them are starting to turn to technology, right? Like one of the hotels that we work with, I remember they went from SHN to open for business and back to SHN. And throughout that period, even though the labor requirements for SHN and open for business are very, very different, they didn't really have to change their manning. And they leverage a lot on technology, not just Vouch technology, but many other different companies' technology. It was really impressive. So I think that hoteliers, in general, the hotel industry, travel, they're starting to look for solutions that allow them to scale up and down more effectively. Then on the traveler's side, I think I speak from personal experience when I say that I really believe that there is a lot of pent up demand and people are willing to spend. So as an example, I went to the UK in October and November, and I went there with half a luggage. Within a week, I filled it up to 1.5 luggages, and by the end of the trip, I brought home 2 luggages. My wife wasn't very happy, but then it's because there's this mindset. I'm not sure when I can travel again. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to see these things. Why not? Let me just spend the money now, because who knows, right? Next month I probably can't travel anymore. Yeah, that kind of mentality. So I really genuinely think that revenge spending is a thing, and I think a large part of at least the next year or so will boil down on revenge spending will have a huge impact on the way that people spend their money when they travel. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. I think there's another question that comes to mind. The fact that do you think there's a misconceived fear about technology? How is it going to evolve jobs? Is technology going to take over a lot of jobs? So in terms of the ability to actually get more labor, right? Where do you think would be the areas that technology can actually evolve in terms of jobs? And I guess, what is the future of jobs in the hospitality industry? I guess is what I'm driving at. Would anyone like to take on this question?
I think I can take this because it's about hospitality industry. I think as of now, hospitality industry needs enthusiastic personnel to come in. We need the manpower, and I think there is a shift in how people conceive hospitality industry before versus now. It is, and I think during a rehearsal, if I'm not wrong, there was a discussion over here, which was basically concluded to the fact that there's a change in mindset of how people perceive hospitality. It is not about the dirty job per se, but it's more about how you can be smart in what you do, and if you do it in the smart way that we think you could, you'd be well rewarded for that. And the living example I can give you is like I'm 36-year-old, and if you go in the same industry of engineering to any other firm, unless and until you're completely gray or bald, you don't get the director post, right? So it's I think hospitality industry, and I think both of the gentlemen in this panel can vouch for that, pun intended, that the hospitality industry is the only one that gives you that chance. If you're good, they would not stifle your growth. In fact, they push through the ceiling so that you reach your true potential, And I think that's a very refreshing way to see this industry, because if you're good, you're going to go up top very, very easily. And hospitality industry needs manpower. So there is no question or doubt whatsoever about that.
So you heard it here. There are jobs. Definitely there are jobs.
And when, if I may also add, so as I mentioned in my opening, I'm a hospitality graduate. I actually graduated from the University of Surrey in England. And then since then, I've been so fortunate to travel. I spent 7 years in the US, I spent 3 years in the UK, 5 years in Dubai, and now 6 years here in Asia. And there are very few jobs or industries that allow you to do that. And I made a switch. I was in hotel operations, I moved to area sales, and then now I'm on the technology side. So I think when you look at the industry, there are so many different ways in which you can be actively involved. You know, it could be on the tech side, you could be on the startup side, or you could be on the hospitality and operations side. So I think when you're going through your graduation processes, I think you should keep your mind very, very broad. There is just so much opportunity across so many different touch points now. And it's an exciting time. And as Adi said, you know, we need really committed people to take us and keep us pushing through over the next few years. So.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
I also just wanted to add something. So, two things. I think that there is a misconception that is becoming less prevalent that technology will take over jobs in hospitality, right? And as an example, I remember one of the hotels that we worked with, they were able to because of their use of technology, they were able to spend more time with the guests. So at one point in time when they were in an SHN hotel, they were able to write up like personalized cards, play games, online games with the guests to keep them entertained. And I thought that was a really, really nice touch. And that I think is hospitality, right? It's not so much how nice your bed sheets are or how nice someone is to you, but it's that experience that you get when you stay at the hotel. And so that was the first thing. The second thing that I think is happening is that with more technology going into the hospitality industry, you start to have a little bit of a change in the types of jobs that are available. You're going to need more analysts. You're going to need more people that are savvy with tech, people that can operate tech, people that can use tech to scale, to multiply whatever they're doing. And I think those jobs then become a lot more interesting for the newer generation coming in, because there's so much more receptivity towards technology. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been a great panel discussion. We have time for just one more question. And the question is, what are you most looking forward to in the hospitality industry for 2022 and beyond? Maybe
To travel.
Yep, I think we're all
Swear
unanimous
on
on
God,
that.
to travel. That's it. That is all I'm looking forward to. I'm not sure about Edward and what Vouch can vouch for, but come on, it's just to travel. Simple as that.
So Adi, I'm 100% with you there.
There you go.
100%. Yep. Already looking at tickets to Thailand. Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, I think we just want things to get a bit normal and to see a bit of positive change in guests. We want guests. I think from hospitality industry, we want guests. And the moment we have guests, we're going to be knocking at Amadeus's door and Voucher's door. So it's a vicious cycle, you see.
and that's why we
Virtuous
close all
cycle.
these panels together. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. To close this session, I would like to thank my three distinguished guests, Adi Juta, Edward Wright, and Joseph Ling. Everyone is encouraged to return to the main plenary through the same link as you joined at the start. If not, it should be appearing on your screen right now. Wonderful. There'll be activities and prizes to be won, so don't miss out. Right? We hope you have enjoyed this breakout session. For those that are celebrating Chinese New Year next week, happy Chinese New Year. And for those who are not, have a restful and happy few days of rest. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.